Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look basically at essentially how the Strength GT Spirit Bomb duo perform in Ultimate Red Zone. Now specifically we're using the Metal Core Cooler Ultimate Red Zone. I think Metal Core Cooler is a pretty good test for a lot of units. Firstly, the end phase is pretty tough. Like, he hits pretty hard in the end phase, a lot harder than the beginning of a lot of other red zone. And this is a good test, first of all. Secondly, I think they favored in the second phase, typing wise. But also I think it's just a very strong event, and it's a very good indicator. If a unit does well in the Metal Cooler event, generally speaking I feel like they do a pretty good job across the board. Now, you could see there that they took 500,000 at a rainbow level from a super attack from int Metal Core Cooler. This was before super attack, so they weren't at their full defensive capabilities, but that's just more a testament to how hard Metal Core Cooler hits more than anything. Like as I said, they hit pretty damn hard, so don't be surprised when you see how hard they do hit. It definitely is something that can throw you for a bit of a loop. Now, the real question that you kind of want to ask yourselves when you use these guys is generally what their best setup is. So obviously the big thing with them is that they gain a lot of defense being in the first slot, and they gain that defense on super. That's one thing that's kind of misleading about how their passive is worded. They gain it as the first attacker, but because they have to attack first, generally speaking, defense, the raw numbers, doesn't kick in. If it was something like guard, then they would definitely have it, but it's just one of those weird, kind of not typo, but the way it's just factored into the calculation things. So obviously they do struggle a little bit in being a first slot tank, even though their defense, technically speaking, can hit some really high levels. They also build up damage reduction, which is pretty good, and they build it up really quite quickly. They get damage reduction from every single attack up to a max of 50%. And like I say, it's generally speaking a pretty quick pacing that they obtain this damage reduction at. Every single step is 10%, so I think for me that's a pretty good build up for them. And then obviously the big factor about them is how they work in terms of their revival skill or standby skill. So a big thing for these guys is their standby skill. So their standby skill is really good. It can be activated from 4th turn if you're at 50% HP or less. If you're at 50% HP or less, you can just be activated. Or starting from the 4th turn from the start of battle if they receive an attack 4 or more times. And in their standby skill phase, they have a lot going on. They have, defense of 150% if HP is 50% or more. So the big thing with them is that they, have no defense essentially if you're below 50%. And this is kind of important because it allows you to activate the revival, and the revival is, pretty good. And why revivals are really good is exactly these kind of situations. So you've entered your physical phase against your Metal Core Cooler, your team is maybe a bit low on health, Gohan, which is a great unit, AGL Gohan, but he needs, unfortunately, to be above 50% health to have his guard activated. He is in a situation where he doesn't have his guard activated. Your units here, your Strength GT units, are in the unfortunate situation where they don't have their full damage reduction activated, and so you don't really have the tankiest lineup, and now you're probably gonna die if you get hit by a how can I say, super attack. If you get hit by anything of such nature, you're going to lose. However, in this scenario, you can actively plan ahead for this and literally just place your units in harm's way knowing that you are going to get the super attack off. And this is pretty important because, like I say, they do pretty good damage with the revival skill, but it also means you control the flow of the battle. You know exactly what's going to happen, and it's good along the board. Now, should they not fall, it doesn't matter. The other units in the turn can take the knockout hits. That's also fine. And beyond that as well, they provide a huge 80% attack buff to the rest of the team as well. So pretty cool. There's some really crazy situations you can get into using both these units. Like using both of these units together. There's some pretty wild situations that you can get into, which is cool. I think overall it's really good stuff. So yeah, for me, I think they work great. I think they're really solid. I think their performance is really good, and I think as a unit they carry their load in red zone pretty well. I think there will be stages they're struggling, even with their full defense, even with their full damage reduction. Tanking from AGL Super Broly is still going to be rough. I think mathematically they can technically maybe do it, depending on how high your health is, but it's not something that I would advise, because they're going to receive a huge chunk of damage, even with that damage reduction. So it's, yeah, there's a couple of the way, obviously they're maybe not the go-to style of unit, but for most red zones they'll definitely be able to put in work. In fact, I think beyond that Broly red zone, they're pretty much a stock standard super strong option for every other red zone that you have. I think basically they're just really solid. Like you can see here, defense wise they look really good. They're gonna have great defense after super. I'm not convinced that they are a first slot option. Even with their full damage reduction, maybe, but I'm not convinced. I mean, you look at units like Gamma 1. Gamma 1 is another unit that has 50% damage reduction, but he reaches, I think, around 400, 500k defense. They don't have that, at least not before they fire their super attack, and I think that's the big limiting factor for me. However, they're great. They make mincemeat of Metal Core Cooler, obviously through type advantage, but they do great at great damage in any scenario, and they build up their attack quite well. So in longer red zones, I mean, Metal Core Cooler, from a strategic standpoint, you want to beat as quickly as possible. But Metal Core Cooler is definitely one of the shorter red zones, and I think the way they do well here is very good. But yeah, like I said, really just strong unit in general. Really like their performance. I think they did a great job. And yeah, I think that's kind of like everything that I probably want to say about them in red zone. I think they're awesome and they're a cool unit, and if you've got them, there's some really cool strategies you can do. But that's it. Bye.